I think you guys don't have the last page again. We're going to conclude this Yom Kippur Sichas, and I guess this will be our last class until the next month. So it's been a good round, gentlemen. Well done. We said yesterday that similar to the shofar, where you have inside of it three levels, right? The level of the Ratzon of Hashem, which is the mitzvah of the shofar itself. The level of tshuva, which is hinted to, like Rambam says in Hilchas Tshuva, that even though it's a gezeres hakasuv, there's a remez yeshba, there's a hint, which is do tshuva. And that's also sort of hinted to in the shofar. And then there's, of course, the highest level of the shofar, which is tam lichun yalechem, the essence of the shofar, which can't even be hinted to in the Shulchan Aruch, not even the Hilchas Tshuva, because it's so far beyond. So we said that's be above the Bal HaRatzon, and it goes into the state of the Atzmus, which is even before Hashem, in Hashem's own self, he's even thinking of the mitzvahs. And we said that even though all these things are accessible, essentially in the shofar, you reach the deepest levels by going through the lowest levels. As we said, the same thing is true when it comes to Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur also has the laws of Yom Kippur, keeping the holiday, fasting, etc. It has the tshuva of Yom Kippur, where it's also one of the 10 days of tshuva. And of course it has the itzumo shel yom. It has the essence of Yom Kippur, which we said is this idea that it's a level of kapara, which is beyond what human hands can reach. And it's basically the revelation of the essence of the soul, where no blemish is relevant to begin with. But here too, you get to those higher levels specifically through the lowest level. That if you don't keep the actual mitzvah of fasting and the mitzvahs of the day, then you can't obviously get to the secret essence of the day either. And we gave at the end of yesterday's class an analogy for this, that a kategor cannot become a snegor. What does that mean? A prosecutor cannot simultaneously become a defender. So this is the same reason why Aaron did not go into the Kodesh HaKadoshim to obtain atonement for the golden calf with his golden garments on, right? Because he can't simultaneously be holding on to the gold and gain atonement through the very thing which caused you to sin. So too, if you don't keep Yom Kippur, you can't access these greater heights which are connected with Yom Kippur. And that goes even according to Rebbe, who said what? Yes? Even don't do tshuva, right? Because everybody says the essence of the day atones. Just Rebbe said the essence of the day atones even if you don't do tshuva. But nonetheless, even Rebbe would say that you can't get the essence of the day to come out unless you keep the law. So based on that, this is how sort of the whole Sicha kind of develops. The end is based on this concept that through the basic keeping of Yom Kippur, you access these higher levels. And he says, Davers, going into chapter 5, Davar ze anu motzim gam ba'avodas Kohen Gadol b'Yom Kippur. We find this in the avoda of the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur. Bikari avodas HaKohen Gadol b'Yom zeh. What was his main avoda? One of the main things that the Kohen Gadol was busy with, Knisas l'Kodesh HaKadoshim. It was the only day of the year that anyone got to go into the Holy of Holies. So this obviously represents sort of the pinnacle excitement of Yom Kippur. Al Knisas zu nemar b'pasuk. And regarding this entrance, it says in the verse, Kol Adam lo yeh ba'oel moed. It says that when he goes in, no person can be in the Oel Moed. Right? He had to be completely alone in there. And then furthermore, it says in the Gemara of Yerushalmi, not only was no man found in there, afilu osan sheksav behem v'demus pneim pnei adam. Not only was no man found in there, as he couldn't be with other people, but even upon those who had said, the pasuk says, they had the image of the face of a man, which is referring to all the angels, right? That the angels in the vision of Yecheskel, it says that they had wings and bodies of different animals, but they had the face of a man. So even those couldn't be found with him. So when he went into the Holy of Holies, he was alone even from all the ministering angels. It was like a yichud of the Kohen Gadol with Hashem without anybody around. This is referring to the heavenly beings. The Malachim Nailim, very highest angels, even they had no business being involved in the avoda of the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur. We're on the top of page 133, second column. Gam hem lo yachul limatzeh b'kodesh HaKodashim. Even these highest angels could not be found in the Holy of Holies. Kolomar, what does that come to tell us? Sha'avoda shel Yom Kippurim megale es his achdu shel b'nei Yisrael. It shows us on this unique level that we've been talking about. This is like a symbol, al pi halacha, of the itzumo shel Yom, something which is so far beyond, it's beyond any of the highest regions of the ministering angels. That the avodah of Yom Kippur reveals this unification of the Jewish people. Because the Kohen Gadol is basically the shaliach of all of Klal Yisrael. He represents basically Adam inside of all of us. And this unity of Adam with the Kadosh Baruch Hu is what it says, Yisrael Malka Bilchudoi. There's this idea that Hashem is with us alone. This, by the way, when does this resurface? We have this experience on Rosh Hashanah, that it's just us and the king. No one else is shaykh to crowning the king. Then it goes and we find this inside of the Kodesh HaKodashim. And then when do we find this? Simchas Torah. Right? When it says, after we finish offering all the 70 altars, all the 70 animals for the goyim through the holiday of Sukkot, then on the last day, Simchas Torah, it's going to be a big day of Mashiach, right? We've already we're going to celebrate this year to Kamosha Tzarich, and then all of the other nations, which represents all the ministering angels and any other entity, they're all sort of disappear. We only offer one animal. Singular, right? Everybody else leaves the party and we're like alone with Hashem on Simchas Torah. It's the greatest day, which is essentially, Simchas Torah is the revelation of this experience of the Melech and the Itzumu Shel Yom in its fullest and most ripe, intense level of revelation, which is why it's so crazy. They basically picked the wrong day, to mess with the Jews. This is like the essential relationship with God and man reveals itself on Simchas Torah. But anyway, this is where this lashon we find Yisrael umalka bilchudoi. It's like you and the king are alone, right? And where do we find this? This is this experience of the Adam in the Holy of Holies, the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur. Yisera mizo. What's furthermore? Knisasu shel Kohen Gadol lekodesh HaKodashim haisagam b'bayis sheni. And what do we hear from here? That he went into the Kodesh HaKodashim even during the time of the second temple. What's unique about that? The Az kvar hayachaser bo Aron HaKodesh. What was missing inside of the Kodesh HaKodashim, unfortunately, during the second temple? The Aron, with the luchos inside, right? Because that was hidden during the time of the second temple already. So, mikach, move on. What's the message behind that? From here we understand that going into there reaches into a place which is even beyond the Torah. Even the Torah in its ultimate stage, because we know there's different levels of the Torah. The Torah Shebal Peh, Torah Shebeksav, and there's the Torah in the state of the Luchos, which is this level of total unity of the Torah with God, that these letters we talk about this quite often. The letters in the Luchos were actually an absence of letters, which shows a total absence of Metzias. This is the level of the Torah in its highest form. And yet, we go into the Kodesh HaKadoshim, even when the Torah is not in there, to show that our relationship with Hashem is even higher than the relationship with the Torah. Where this links in with what I spent a long time on yesterday trying to explain. Seemingly it might have been a little bit extraneous, but it's coming to explain here. Who remembers what we said? If you ask the Torah for kapara, what does the Torah tell you? It says do tshuva and bring. You have to bring an asham, a sacrifice, right? If you ask Hashem, if you want kapara, how does a sinning soul? What are you supposed to do with a sinning soul? What does Hashem say? Tshuva. And we said that this is basically the difference between the level of the Baal HaRatzon, if you remember from yesterday. The first level, where it's called Torah, is really connected with what we've been calling tshuva, because at the end of the day, tshuva is found in the Torah. It is a mitzvah. It's just a mitzvah klali, which is above all the other mitzvahs, and therefore it's associated with Torah. And even though we said Torah in terms of Torah, Avodah, Ugmnus, Chasadim, which is the three kavim that Torah goes up to in the central column, and therefore it reaches up to the Keser, but it still reaches up to the level of the Keser, which is shaykh to the Hishtalshalus, right? It reaches up to sort of the Chitzonis of the Keser. And therefore, Torah shows you how to do tshuva, right? Which is higher than the Torah. But it's still a type of tshuva which you learn about through the Torah, and therefore it's still shaykh to the mitzvahs. And therefore you reached above the mitzvahs, but you reach only to the Baal HaRatzon. And therefore, what we're saying here is that when you ask Hashem, how do I get kapara? And he says, do tshuva. This is talking about the tshuva ilah of Yom Kippur, the essence of the day, which is even beyond the Bala Ratzon. And that's what he's explaining here. That the fact that we find something in the second temple when there was no Torah in there, and yet the Kohen Gadol goes in there and achieves this unity with Hashem and this atonement. Even though unfortunately the luchos were missing, it actually shows us that our relationship with Hashem on Yom Kippur is higher than what the Torah offers us. Even the Torah in its highest, most form of the luchos, which is chakika and God's engraving himself and becoming one with the Torah, there's a level of essential Jewish connection which is higher than has anything to do with the Torah, even the Torah in its highest form, which is basically the tshuva that the Torah tells us about. And this is essentially the itzumo shel yom. What the Kohen Gadol finds in the Holy of Holies is just Hashem and the Jewish people. There's nothing else there. There's no Torah, there's no mitzvahs, there's no tshuva. It's just a singularity with God. And by the way, before we move on, I just want to connect this to the beginning of the class, because we started talking about this idea that you can only get to these highest levels by going through the actual mitzvah of the day. In this capacity, what is the mitzvah of the day? The Kohen Gadol goes into the Kodesh HaKadoshim, right? That's not like on the basic level, that's not some highfalutin reality. That's just the action that he's supposed to get involved with. He brings the incense, he goes in, he goes out, he goes to the mikveh. All these things is just the mitzvah of the day. And what do we find? Through the mitzvah of the day, you wind up uniting with this essential level, which is totally beyond Torah, beyond tshuva, and beyond mitzvahs altogether. Again, he's just indicating how you find those higher levels through the lower levels. And again, what's the difference between tshuva that's achieved through Torah, whereas this like essential level of tshuva, which is beyond Torah, is that the tshuva sha'idei Torah he bechinas giloy levad. The tshuva that comes through the Torah, because it comes from the external part of Kesser. Those who were in my morning class or our morning class, what's the external part of Kesser called? Arich Anpin. And what do we find over there? We said it's the source of the 9 spheros, which are called the Tesha Nahorin. Excuse me, they're called the 9 lights. Because at that level, in the Chetzonius of Kesser, God basically comes and starts to bring revelation. And it's a high level of revelation. It's a revelation which is beyond the Seder Ishtalshlus, but it's still revelation. The essence of Hashem is even higher than the Chetzonius of the Kesser. He goes up into the Penimius of the Kesser, which is the Radla, which is something which is literally beyond all revelation, which is the Itzumer Shoyom. It's the absolute unity with God and the Kohen Gadol with the Jews. So therefore, the tshuva which is achieved through Torah, even though you go up beyond the Ratzon, you go into the Bala Ratzon, the Bala Ratzon is B'diuk. It's connected with the external part of the Kesser. And therefore it's still connected with Giluyim. You don't get to essence there. Right? So therefore, this tshuva is still associated. The tshuva of Yom Kippur, as opposed to the essence of Yom Kippur, is connected with Gilui. Avsha tshuva hainu l'mayla Torah. Even though tshuva is also higher than Torah, shelachein mo'ila tshuva al pagamim shel tiryag mitzvahs. We already established. That's why it's able to fix the blemishes of the Ratzon, including a blemish on the mitzvah of Talmud Torah itself. Right. So Torah basically shows us this way of something beyond Torah, which is tshuva, but nonetheless, it's still in the realm of Giluim. It's still some expression of Hashem. It's still some aspect of the essence, which is already called the Bal Haratzon. He's still in some gather of presenting some light. It's not total atzmus. Whereas the tshuva, shelamayla Torah, this level of tshuva, which is the essential tshuva of Yom Kippur, which is completely beyond the Torah. In other words, the Torah doesn't even tell you about such a level of this tshuva. Like we see that it's not even found in the Sefer Halachas of the Rambam. Any indication of this level of the shofar's ability to tamnichuni aleichem, because it's so far beyond Torah, it's not even in the Hilchos tshuva. This level is an achdus with Hashem's atzmus, which is above Torah, and therefore it's above Gilui. Torah is called Or, right? So this is the essential connection. Yeah.
This is the connection that makes your transgressions into merits?
Exactly.
But so if you're just saying that it's above revelation,
yeah.
How are we talking about merits? Are we talking about sins? Are we talking about any good and bad? It's beyond the duality, so I don't...
Well, we weren't until you brought it up. No, I'm just kidding. So what is your question? The same question you asked yesterday.
Yeah,
What are you
so
asking?
If we're going above revelation,
Yes.
then how can we even talk about merits at that level?
And I said to you the answer yesterday, right?
That
What
we're
we're talking about
connecting to a
is
place that is
is Gilui of Elokus,
But
right?
we're above the Gilui.
Understood, but there's a certain Gilui of Elokus, which is the essential God, which makes light and darkness equal, right? That's what's so amazing about it, right? That even in the place where it's such like a non-entity that it equates light and darkness, right?
Okay,
And therefore even darkness is light.
Okay, but we're still above Gilui.
Right, a level which cannot be concealed, right? Because it's above Giloi, the whole idea is that if there's something which shaykh to Giloi, then you can also hide the Giloi.
Right.
In which case you get into this idea of lacking something or concealing God. But a place which is above Giloi, it can never be concealed, right? So it's pure godliness in a way that nothing can actually cover it over, and therefore all is good, right? All is God. How about that?
Right. Okay, fine. All is God. But then,
Okay. Which means that anything that you're going to find is already in a state of Gilu Elokus. It's Elokus. I'm not totally understanding what's bothering you.
This is, for me, the concept of merits is indicating that this is good relative to something else. You're getting a reward because there's a cause dynamic, a causal, it's within the realm of Giluim. So if we're going, I feel like the whole thing that we're describing right now is like the same thing that we're describing in Purim, that we're getting to this place where there's no good and there's no bad, and it's almost like above the mitzvah altogether, and there's no space for merit, there's no space for reward, there's no space for punishment. So how are we calling?
But there's still an idea of chosenness. In other words, even though it's not for anything you did, in which case you could be patted on the back for something that you accomplished, it doesn't mean that you're not chosen. In other words, even so, Yaakov is beloved and Esav is hated. Why? Not because of anything they did, but there's a sort of, in other words, there's still a blessing involved in that, right? There's still again, what would you call it? You call it a Gilo Elokus. In other words, it means that because that essence is there, the revelation of God can never be concealed. If you're only dealing with the revelations, and since the revelations, like something can cover them over theoretically, in which case you give birth to the idea of demerits, right? But so long as the essence is shining, then what are you going to find that can cover it over? It's also Elokus, right? And so therefore, since nothing can cover over Elokus, when the essence is there, it's a Giloy of constant goodness which cannot be undone. By reaching the Atzmus, you reach a level where it's Giloy Elokus, light, which can never go away, right? If you're not dealing with the Atzmus, then the light can be covered over. If you reach up to the Atzmus, then it's a light which is, by definition, can never be covered over. Because that which would cover over it, you've also realized that is Elokus.
Right.
Kashem shebizman habayis notris kashrus ha'atzmi shebein neshamas Yisrael lebein HaKadosh Baruch Hu al yedei ha'kenisa shel HaKohen Gadol leKadosh HaKadoshim b'Yom HaKippurim. So just like when there was a temple, we are able to sort of summon and realize the essential connection of the Jewish people and Hashem through the Kohen Gadol entering the Holy of Holies on Yom Kippur. This is where this came out, right? So how do we do it now? How do we reach the Itzumah Shel Yom, right? That was the avoda of the day. We said through the regular mitzvah of the day, you could climb all the way up into Atzmus. Right now, how do we do it? We still have mitzvahs of the day. The basic, which we're doing all day on Yom Kippur, is davening. Right? Tefillah hi b'makam avodas hakarbanis. And adarabba, the tefillah replaces, right, the work of the temple specifically. So that avodah of the Kohen Gadol going in, on the contrary, each one of us gets to be the actual avodah of the Kohen Gadol going in. That's why each one of us reads all the avodah, and we go through all the practices that he does. In other words, in those days, only the Kohen Gadol got to offer all the karbanos. On that day, by the way, it was unique that he was the only one who did any work. He offered the tamid, he offered the musaf, he offered the ketoras, he offered all the special karbanos for for the special day as well, right? No other Kohen lifted a finger on that day. Today, each and every single one of us davens Mariv, and we daven Shachris, and we daven Musaf, and we daven Mincha, and we daven Nila, which means each one of us gets to basically be the Kohen Gadol, despite the fact that we actually have a period during the prayer where we actually read the entire avoda of the Kohen Gadol. So even though we've lost sort of the connection to do the avoda in the actual Beis HaMikdash, Adarabah, we've gained the fact that each and every single one of us gets to do something like the avoda of the Kohen Gadol. So we still have, so to speak, the baseline mitzvah of the day, but it turned into something called tefillah. Yom Kippurim hu hayom hayachid b'shana shechayavim lispal bo chamesh tefillos. The only day of the year that we're obligated to daven 5 prayers, 5 different times from Shemona Esrei. Chamesh tefillos hen keneged chamesh medregos sheminashama. And what are these 5 different prayers? They correspond to the 5 parts of the soul: nefesh, ruach, neshama, chay, and yechida. Hatefillah chamishis, the 5th prayer, of course, is called ne'ilah. Right? We daven this on Yom Kippur, it's called Ne'ilah. Bo misgalis b'chinas ha'yechida shebenefesh. When you get to the Ne'ilah, you reveal the yechida shebenefesh. Kefishi mu'chedes im HaKadosh Baruch Hu. What's the yechida of the nefesh? This is this level that we've been talking about the whole time. It's when you go up to a state of you and the king alone. This comes just like the Kohen Gadol got to go into the, so to speak, yechida of the world, right? This singular place in the world. We all get to go and unlock that place by reaching the state of Ne'ilah, the 5th prayer, which goes on the 5th state of the soul. There it's called yechida for a reason. It means one. It means there's no ministering angels, there's no other people, there's no other nations. You get to this point of total singularity with Hashem. And this is what actually means the word Ne'ilah, according to the Rebbe's Pshat, according to the Hasidus. Usually what it means Ne'ilah in the world is what? It means to lock, right? So people think, better get your last prayers in because the gates are going to get locked and the books are going to get sealed and you're going to be like out of luck. Like, now's your last chance. But Hasidic philosophy is so deep and wondrous. It says on the contrary. What's happening in Ne'ilah? You're getting locked alone in a room with Hashem. In other words, there's not this concept of this fear-mongering that, you better do it before you get locked out. It's that you're locked in, right? You're locked into the Kodesh HaKadosh. You reach the Yechida, and no one else can come in except for you and him, right? You lock all the gates. Ein matirim likanes af echad, just like it says in the Pasuk. No man can enter. You're alone with God. Sham nimtzaim rak b'nei Yisrael im atzmusa yisbarach. It's just you and the essence of God. Now we're saying, so I have to wait till Ne'ilah. What if I get tired? Well, you have to wait till Ne'ilah, and that's when you find your Yechida. He says, not exactly, right? This level of the Yechida is actually found the entire day of Yom Kippur. That's really what Yom Kippur is. It's called Yom Achas, right? It's called a day of oneness, right? Kefi alashin Yom Shnis Chayev Bo Chamesh Tefillos. It's not. It doesn't say there's a day when you get to Ne'ilah. It's a day which is obligated in 5 prayers, which means the day itself, the entire day, is a day of 5 prayers. So the notion of this 5th level, the level of the Yechida and the level of Ne'ilah, it's the whole day. It's a day which has these 5 levels in it, which means the level 5 is already there from level 1. You can find the level of being locked in from the moment that Yom Kippur starts, just like the Kohen Gadol was in and out of the Kodesh HaKadoshim all day long. Which means even though each part of the day has its own aspect of these 5 prayers, in the evening it's Mariv, in the morning it's Shachrit, etc. It's called Yom Shnis Chayev B'Chamesh Tefillos. It's still a day of 5 tefillos, which means in general, the level of 5, the level of Yechida shines the entire day long. And therefore, in conclusion, this is the idea that this 5th level of the Itzumo Shel Yom and the essence of Hashem, which is attainable. How is it attainable? It's attainable through the Ratzon of Hashem. Just like we said by the shofar. You have to actually do the mitzvah of shofar in order to get to this level which is Tam Nichuni Aleichem, which is beyond mitzvah and beyond tshuva. So too, through the fulfillment of these 5 prayers and keeping the actual mitzvah, you get to this level which is beyond tshuva and beyond mitzvah entirely to this level of the Radla. Take it from Yad Mamish. That's it. I think we finished early. Any questions?